The Crying Prince. Tyler Webb pushed his mop across the polished marble floors of the Galactic Council embassy. The building was massive, full of fancy meeting rooms and offices where alien diplomats made decisions that affected entire planets. But at 2 in the morning, it was just Tyler and the echo of his bucket wheels squeaking down empty hallways. He'd been working this night shift for 3 years now. It paid the bills and gave him quiet time to listen to podcasts while he worked. Most nights, nothing interesting happened. He cleaned, he left, he went home. Simple as that. Tonight was different. Tyler was working on the 3rd floor diplomatic wing when he heard something that made him stop mid-swipe. It was a small sound, barely audible over the hum of the building's air system. A hiccup. Then another. Someone was crying. He left his mop bucket and followed the sound. Behind one of those fancy decorative pillars that seemed to serve no purpose except looking expensive, he found a child. Well, not a human child. This kid was clearly alien. His skin had an iridescent quality, shifting between blue and purple under the lights. He had large golden eyes that were currently filled with tears, and a small crest of what looked like feathers running down the back of his head. He wore elaborate robes that probably cost more than Tyler's car, all embroidered with silver thread and strange symbols. The kid looked up at Tyler with those big eyes and immediately tried to stop crying, which just made him hiccup harder. "Hey there," Tyler said softly, crouching down to the child's level. He'd learned from his sister's kids that towering over a scared child never helped. "You okay, buddy?" The child's lower lip trembled. I have failed," he whispered in English with a thick accent that Tyler couldn't place. "Failed? At what?" Tyler looked around, half expecting to see a broken vase or something. The child pointed down at his feet. His shoes, if you could call them that, were elaborate things with straps and laces woven in some complex pattern Tyler had never seen before. The whole system had come completely undone, leaving long cords trailing across the floor. "I cannot fix them," the boy said, his voice breaking. "The fastening came loose during the ceremony, and I ran here to fix them before father sees, but I cannot remember the pattern. I have shamed myself." Tyler looked at the complicated mess of laces and immediately understood the problem. Whatever knot system this was, it looked like it needed an engineering degree to figure out. "Well, let's take a look," Tyler said, sitting down cross-legged on the floor. "I'm Tyler, by the way. What's your name?" "I am called Tevin," the boy said quietly. "Nice to meet you, Tevin. Now, I don't know how these are supposed to go, but I know how to make a knot that'll hold. Want me to show you?" Tevin nodded eagerly, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Tyler started undoing the tangled mess completely. "Okay, so the way I learned to tie shoes, my grandpa taught me when I was about your age. You make what we call bunny ears. You know what a bunny is?" Tevin shook his head. "It's a small animal on Earth with long ears. Anyway, watch." Tyler demonstrated with the laces, making 2 simple loops. "You make 2 loops, like this. Then you tie them together, just like this. See? Not fancy, but it works." He finished the first shoe and started on the second, going slower so Tevin could watch. The boy leaned in, studying every movement with intense concentration. "Now you try this one," Tyler said, loosening what he'd just done. Tevin's small hands fumbled with the laces at first. His fingers seemed to have an extra joint that human fingers didn't, which made the movement look odd, but he managed. The first attempt fell apart immediately. "That's okay, try again," Tyler encouraged. "Took me like 50 tries when I was learning." The second attempt was better. The third actually held. By the 4th try, Tevin had it down, and when the bow stayed tied, his whole face transformed. The sadness vanished, replaced by wonder and pride. "I did it," he gasped. "You sure did," Tyler said, holding up his hand. "High five." Tevin looked confused at the raised hand but mimicked the gesture. When their palms slapped together, he giggled. "This is a victory gesture?" Tevin asked. "Yep. For when you accomplish something cool." Tevin stood up, looking down at his shoes with pure joy. "Father will not be angry now. Thank you, Tyler Webb. You have saved me from great shame." "Ah, don't worry about it," Tyler said, getting to his feet and brushing off his uniform. "Just remember, bunny ears and loop them together. You got this." The boy bowed deeply, which seemed overly formal for shoe tying help, but Tyler figured different cultures had different ways. As Tevin hurried off down the hallway, Tyler noticed something that made his skin prickle. There was someone standing in the shadowed archway at the end of the corridor. The figure was massive, easily 8 feet tall, with the same iridescent skin as Tevin but darker, more purple than blue. This being wore armor that looked both ceremonial and functional, with 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows across a face that was both alien and somehow regal. The being didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there watching. Tyler felt like he'd just been caught doing something wrong, though he had no idea what. He nodded awkwardly at the figure, grabbed his mop and bucket, and quickly headed back to his work area. His hands were shaking slightly as he wrung out the mop. That had been the strangest encounter of his entire life, and he'd worked in this building for 3 years. He'd seen plenty of aliens, sure, but something about that tall figure in the shadows had felt important. Powerful. Tyler had no way of knowing that the being he'd just seen was Emperor Vorath, ruler of the Carathian Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy. He had no idea that the simple act of teaching a child to tie his shoes had just been witnessed by someone who could move fleets of warships with a word. He just knew that some kid had needed help, and he'd helped. That was it. But sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything. The strange request. Tyler figured that would be the end of his weird encounter with the alien kid. Just another strange night at the embassy that he'd maybe tell his friends about over beers someday. But when he clocked in the next evening, his supervisor Daniel was waiting for him with the most confused expression Tyler had ever seen on the man's face. "Webb, my office." "Now," Daniel said, not angry but definitely baffled. Tyler followed him, running through everything he'd done last night. Had he missed a spot? Broken something? He couldn't think of anything. Daniel closed the office door and just stared at Tyler for a moment. "I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to not freak out." "Okay," Tyler said slowly. "The Carathian Emperor has made a formal request to the Council. He wants you, specifically you, assigned to his son as a cultural attendant for the duration of their stay here. That's 4 weeks. Tyler blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "Yeah, that was my reaction too." Daniel sat down heavily. "Look, I don't understand it either. You're a janitor. No offense, but you're not a diplomat or a teacher or anything that would normally interact with alien royalty. But the Emperor was very specific. He asked for the human who helped his son last night." "I just showed a kid how to tie his shoes," Tyler said, still processing. "Well, apparently that meant something to an emperor, because we literally cannot say no to this request. The Carathians are too important politically. So congratulations, I guess? You're getting a temporary promotion with a massive pay bump." That's how Tyler found himself the next morning standing in a ridiculously fancy sitting room, wearing clothes the embassy had rushed to buy for him because his janitor uniform apparently wasn't appropriate. The door opened and young Prince Tevin practically ran into the room, his face lighting up when he saw Tyler. "Tyler Webb. Father said you would come." The boy's excitement was genuine and infectious. Behind him came that massive figure from the shadows. Emperor Vorath in full light was even more intimidating than Tyler remembered. The ruler studied Tyler with those 6 eyes, his expression unreadable. "You have my gratitude for assisting my son," the Emperor said, his voice deep and formal. "I wish for you to continue teaching him during our stay on your world." Teaching him what exactly, sir?" Tyler asked. "Whatever you deem appropriate," the Emperor replied, which was the vaguest job description Tyler had ever received. So began the strangest month of Tyler's life. Every morning, he'd arrive at the Carathian suite not really knowing what he was supposed to do. Tevin would bombard him with questions about everything. How did human doors work? Why did Tyler carry his own bag? What were those things humans ate for breakfast? Tyler just answered honestly and showed the kid normal, everyday stuff. He taught Tevin how to organize his schoolwork in a binder instead of leaving it scattered everywhere. He showed him how to fold clothes properly so they didn't wrinkle. He taught him different types of knots beyond the bunny ear method, each useful for different things. Tevin absorbed everything like a sponge. The kid was smart and eager to learn, even about the most mundane things. When Tyler showed him how to make a simple sandwich, Tevin acted like he'd been given the secrets of the universe. "You prepare your own food?" Tevin asked, amazed. "Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes I go to restaurants, but mostly I cook for myself. Saves money and I know exactly what's in it." "But you could have others prepare it for you." Tyler laughed. "I could, but why would I? I've got 2 hands and a kitchen. Seems silly to pay someone to do what I can do myself, you know?" The prince went quiet, thinking hard about this. Tyler noticed he did that a lot, taking ideas that seemed obvious to Tyler and turning them over in his mind like they were revolutionary concepts. The Carathian guards were always present during these lessons, standing at attention around the room. Tyler could feel their disapproval radiating off them in waves. They'd mutter to each other in their language, and while Tyler couldn't understand the words, the tone was clear. They thought this was beneath a prince. Maybe they thought it was beneath them too, having to watch a human janitor teach their future ruler how to tie his shoes and make a sandwich. But the weirdest part was Emperor Vorith. Every single day, usually in the evening, the Emperor would appear. He never announced himself, just materialized in doorways or at the edge of rooms. He'd stand there silently, watching Tyler teach his son. Sometimes for just a few minutes, sometimes for an hour. It made Tyler incredibly nervous at first. How were you supposed to act natural when an alien emperor who commanded entire star systems was watching you show his kid how to use a 3-ring binder? But Tevin never seemed bothered by his father's presence, so Tyler tried to ignore it too. One afternoon, Tyler was teaching Tevin how to organize his digital files on his tablet. The prince's homework folder was a chaotic mess with random names like Thing and Stuff too, and the one about planets maybe. Okay, so the trick is to name things clearly so you can find them later, Tyler explained. See, I'd call this one Galactic History assignment instead of Stuff too. That way, when you're looking for it next week, you'll know exactly what it is. But I will remember, Tevin said. You say that now, but trust me, future you will thank present you for being clear. I learned this the hard way. They spent an hour renaming files and creating a logical folder structure. It was boring work, the kind of thing Tyler did without thinking, but Tevin was fascinated by the idea of organizing information for his future self. This is wisdom, Tevin said seriously. Planning for when you will not remember. Tyler smiled. I guess you could call it that. I just call it not wanting to hunt through 100 files looking for one thing. That evening, as Tyler was packing up to leave, one of the Carathian guards muttered something in their language. Tyler didn't understand it, but he understood the dismissive gesture that went with it. Another guard responded with what sounded like agreement, and they both laughed quietly. Tevin's face flushed a darker purple, clearly embarrassed. The boy looked down at his newly organized tablet, and Tyler saw shame creeping into his expression. Hey, Tyler said quietly, touching the prince's shoulder. You learned something useful today. That's nothing to be ashamed of. They think it is beneath me, Tevin whispered. Learning servant tasks. Is that what you think? Tyler asked. Tevin was quiet for a moment, then shook his head. No. I think being able to do things for myself makes me stronger, not weaker. Then that's all that matters, buddy. From the doorway, unnoticed by Tyler or the guards but seen by Tevin, Emperor Vorith watched this exchange. The ruler's expression shifted slightly, something that might have been satisfaction or approval crossing his alien features. Tyler had no idea that everything was about to change. He just knew that this kid, prince or not, deserved to learn and grow without people making him feel small for it. That seemed like basic human decency to him. But in the complex politics of the galaxy, basic human decency was about to become revolutionary. The state dinner was something Tyler never expected to attend in his entire life. He'd been told to dress formally and show up as part of Prince Tevin's cultural delegation, whatever that meant. So there he was, wearing a suit that the embassy had provided, sitting at a table with beings from a dozen different worlds, feeling completely out of his depth. The dining hall was enormous, decorated with floating lights that changed colors and filled the air with a soft glow. Diplomats and their staff filled the space, speaking in various languages while servers moved between tables carrying dishes Tyler couldn't even begin to identify. Prince Tevin sat at the main table with his father and several other important-looking Carathians. Tyler was at a side table with some of the prince's educational staff, people who mostly ignored him. He was fine with that. He just wanted to get through the evening without embarrassing himself. The trouble started during the third course. Human utensils had been provided for the guests, as a gesture of respect since the dinner was being held on Earth. Tyler noticed Tevin struggling with his fork and knife, trying to cut something on his plate. The food kept sliding around, and the prince's frustration was visible even from where Tyler sat today. A server stepped forward to help, which seemed normal enough to Tyler. But then a voice cut through the conversations around them. How fascinating. The speaker was an alien Tyler hadn't seen before, tall and angular with crystalline skin that reflected the floating lights. Ambassador Kreth, someone whispered. From the Vaccine Union. The Carathian heir cannot manage even a simple meal without assistance. The room didn't go completely silent, but conversations definitely dropped in volume. People were listening now. Emperor Vorith's expression remained neutral, But Tyler had spent enough time around Tevin to recognize the slight color shift in Carathian skin that indicated stress. The Emperor was not happy. "My son is learning human customs," Vorith said evenly. "As are we all during this cultural exchange." Of course," Kreth replied, his tone dripping with false sympathy. "Though one might wonder how a child so dependent on servants for every basic task will someday lead an empire. Can he dress himself? Feed himself? Or will he always require others to manage such things for him?" It was a calculated insult, and everyone in the room knew it. Tyler felt anger flash through him. Tevin was a good kid who was trying his best. This ambassador was using a child's struggle with unfamiliar utensils to make some kind of political point. Tevin's face had gone dark purple with shame. His hands trembled slightly as he set down his fork. Tyler wanted to go over there, to help, but he had no idea what the protocol was. Would intervening make things worse? Emperor Vorith stood, his massive frame drawing every eye in the room. "Ambassador Kreth raises an interesting point," he said, and Tyler's heart sank. Was the Emperor going to side with this jerk? "My people have long held that certain tasks are beneath royal dignity. That leaders should not concern themselves with manual labor or basic self-care." Kreth smiled, clearly thinking he'd won this exchange. "But I have been observing something during our time on Earth," the Emperor continued. "I have watched a human teach my son skills that no Carathian could teach him. Not because humans are superior, but because our culture forbids it. And I have come to question whether this prohibition serves us, or limits us." The room was definitely silent now. Tyler had no idea where this was going. "Tyler Webb," the Emperor said, and Tyler nearly jumped out of his chair. "Would you be willing to teach my staff your human methods of self-sufficiency?" Tyler's mouth went dry. Every eye in the room was on him. What exactly would you want me to teach, sir?" "Everything you have taught my son. How to organize oneself. How to prepare basic meals. How to solve simple problems without requiring servants. These practical skills." One of the Carathian guards actually gasped. Several of the staff members looked horrified. Tyler understood why. He picked up enough over the past few weeks to know that Carathian culture had strict rules about this kind of thing. Royalty and warriors didn't do servant work. It was like some kind of sacred law. "Your Majesty," one of the senior Carathians said carefully, "such activities are forbidden by the codes of—" "I am the Emperor," Vorith interrupted quietly. "I am the keeper of the codes. And I am choosing to change them." Tyler caught Tevin's expression. The boy was staring at his father with a mixture of shock and something that looked like hope. Okay," Tyler said, still not quite believing this was happening. "I can do that. If you really want me to." "I do," Emperor Vorith said firmly. Then he looked directly at Ambassador Kreth. "My son will learn independence. My people will learn capability. And we will be stronger for it, not weaker." Kreth's crystalline face revealed nothing, but Tyler got the sense the ambassador had not expected this response. That's how Tyler ended up running the most surreal classes of his entire life. For the next week, he taught Carathian guards and diplomats how to tie their shoes. How to prepare simple sandwiches and salads. How to clean their own quarters and organize their belongings. How to do their own laundry. It was awkward at first. The guards looked at him with barely concealed resentment. The diplomats treated the lessons like punishment. But Emperor Vorith attended every single session, and he participated fully. When the Emperor of the Carathian Empire knelt down to learn how to tie his boots properly, even the most resistant guards had to follow along. Tyler tried to make it practical rather than humiliating. "Look, I'm not saying you need to do all this stuff all the time," he explained during one session. "But knowing how to do it means you're never helpless. If you're somewhere without servants or support staff, you can take care of yourself. That's freedom, not shame." One of the younger guards, a female named Hela, actually seemed to get it. "It is like combat training," she said thoughtfully. "We train for situations we hope never to face, so we are prepared if they occur." "Exactly," Tyler said, glad someone understood. "It's just being prepared." On the fifth evening of classes, Emperor Vorith asked Tyler to walk with him through the embassy gardens. Tyler's heart hammered as they walked in silence for a moment. Being alone with an alien emperor felt surreal. "Do you understand why I asked this of you?" Vorith finally said. "Honestly, sir? Not really," Tyler admitted. "I mean, I get that you want your people to be more independent, but I still don't understand why me specifically." The Emperor stopped walking, turning to face Tyler with all 6 eyes. "When I found my son crying that night, I had been searching frantically for him. He had run from a ceremony in shame because he could not fix his footwear. A simple problem, yet one that caused him deep distress. Tyler nodded, remembering. I was about to assist him myself, breaking our cultural prohibitions to do so, when I saw you approach. I watched you kneel to his level. Speak to him with kindness. Teach him not just how to fix his shoes, but how to fix them himself. The Emperor's voice grew quieter. You gave him dignity and capability. You saw him as a child who needed to learn, not a prince to serve. He's a good kid, Tyler said simply. He deserves to learn stuff. Indeed. But no Carathian could teach him these things without violating sacred laws. Our culture has trapped us in dependence, and called it dignity. Vorith looked back toward the embassy. You showed me another way. A human way. And I intend to bring that way to my people, even if it means changing laws that have stood for generations. Tyler didn't know what to say to that. He just helped a scared kid with his shoes. How had that turned into a cultural revolution? I hope this works out, sir, he finally said. So do I, Emperor Vorith replied. So do I. Tyler thought the story would end when the Carathian delegation left Earth. He'd go back to mopping floors, and everything would return to normal. He was wrong. 3 weeks after the Carathians departed, Tyler's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. News alerts, messages from people he barely knew, even a few journalists trying to contact him. He finally opened one of the news links his sister had sent him. The headline read, Carathian Emperor revolutionizes ancient culture after learning from human janitor. There was a video attached. Emperor Vorith stood before what looked like thousands of Carathians in some massive assembly hall. Tevin stood beside his father, looking proud and nervous at the same time. For generations, we have believed that certain tasks diminish our dignity, the Emperor's voice boomed through the hall. We have taught our children that to serve oneself is to lower oneself. But I have learned something during our visit to Earth. True strength is not in forcing others to do what we can do ourselves. True strength is capability. Independence. Self-sufficiency. The camera showed mixed reactions in the crowd. Some looked shocked, others intrigued, some openly disapproving. Beginning immediately, all Carathian children will learn practical life skills as part of their education. This includes royal children. This includes military trainees. This includes everyone. Vorith paused, letting that sink in. We call this the path of self-sufficiency. Some may call it the human method. Whatever name we use, it will make us stronger. Tyler watched in disbelief as the Emperor demonstrated tying his own boots before the entire assembly. Tevin stepped forward next, confidently preparing a simple meal on a small portable cooking unit, explaining each step clearly. The kid had come so far from that crying boy behind the pillar. This is insane, Tyler muttered to himself. But it was only the beginning. Over the next few months, the story spread across the galaxy faster than Tyler could have imagined. Other alien species started paying attention. The Mecran Collective, known for their rigid social hierarchy, sent a delegation to Earth specifically to learn about human independence training. The Thessian Commonwealth began questioning their own traditions about manual labor. The Vaccine Union, Ambassador Kretha's people, tried to spin the story negatively. They put out statements claiming the Carathians were abandoning their culture, becoming weak. But then something unexpected happened. Young Vaxians started speaking out on their communication networks, saying they wanted to learn these skills too. That maybe their culture's restrictions were outdated. Tyler watched all of this unfold from his apartment, still working his regular janitor shifts. The embassy kept offering him promotions, fancy titles, opportunities to travel and teach. He turned them all down. That wasn't who he was. He wasn't some guru with special wisdom. He was just a guy who knew how to tie his shoes and make a sandwich. His sister Rachel called him one evening, laughing. Do you realize there are like 7 different alien species who have implemented programs based on what you taught that kid? They're calling you the great teacher on some of their worlds. That's ridiculous, Tyler said. I'm not a teacher. I just showed Tevin some basic stuff. Yeah, well, apparently basic stuff is revolutionary when nobody's allowed to teach it, Rachel replied. You should be proud, Ty. You helped people. Maybe she was right. Tyler had started getting messages from Tevin every few weeks. The prince would send videos of himself cooking, organizing, fixing things. Each message was filled with enthusiasm about how much he was learning. Other young Carathians had started their own channels, sharing their journey toward self-sufficiency. It had become a movement. The political implications were even bigger than Tyler had realized. He got an email from Director Palmer at the embassy explaining what was happening behind the scenes. The Carathian Empire had been considered vulnerable by their rivals because their leaders couldn't function without extensive support staff. It was seen as a weakness that could be exploited. Kidnap a Carathian royal, and they'd be helpless within days, unable to even feed themselves. But now? Carathian military units were performing better in joint exercises because soldiers could maintain their own equipment and solve problems independently. Their diplomatic staff were more effective because they could adapt to different environments without requiring servants. The Empire's enemies had expected weakness and instead faced a transformed adversary. 6 months after the Carathians left Earth, Tyler received a formal invitation. The Galactic Council was holding a special session, and Emperor Vorith had specifically requested Tyler's presence. Tyler almost didn't go. He hated being the center of attention. But Rachel convinced him, saying some things were too important to skip. So he found himself back in that massive council chamber, wearing another suit he didn't own, feeling completely out of place. The session was about cultural evolution and adaptation. Representatives from dozens of species spoke about changes they were implementing in their own societies, inspired by the Carathian example. The Thessian Commonwealth announced they were eliminating their servant caste system entirely. The Mecran Collective revealed new educational standards that included practical skills training for all citizens. Then Emperor Vorith stood to speak. Many have asked what inspired these changes. Some credit human philosophy. Others cite economic efficiency. But the truth is simpler. He gestured toward Tyler in the audience. One human saw a child who needed help, and he helped. He did not see rank or status. He saw need, and he met it with kindness and practical assistance. That simple act revealed a truth we had forgotten. Dignity does not come from what others do for us. It comes from what we can do for ourselves and others. Tevin stepped forward then, looking much more confident than the scared kid Tyler had first met. Tyler Webb taught me to tie my shoes. But more than that, he taught me that learning is not shameful. That being able to care for myself makes me stronger, not weaker. Every young Carathian now learns these lessons. We are better for it. The council chamber erupted in what Tyler assumed was applause, though it sounded different from species to species. Some clicked, others hummed, some produced sounds Tyler couldn't even describe. Later, in a quieter moment, Tyler found himself alone with Emperor Vorith. The massive ruler looked tired but satisfied. You've changed a lot of lives, Tyler said. You changed them, Vorith corrected. I simply recognized the value of what you showed us. I really just helped a kid with his shoes, Tyler said, still not quite believing all of this. Yes, the Emperor agreed. And sometimes that is enough. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness creates ripples that cross galaxies. He placed a large hand on Tyler's shoulder. Thank you, Tyler Webb. You gave my son confidence. You gave my people strength. And you gave the galaxy an example worth following. Tyler didn't know what to say to that. He'd never wanted to be an example or a teacher or anything special. He just wanted to help a scared kid. But looking around at the council chamber, seeing representatives from worlds he'd never even heard of discussing cultural reforms and educational changes, he realized something important. Maybe that was the point. Maybe the galaxy didn't need grand gestures or complex philosophies. Maybe it just needed more people willing to help when they saw someone struggling. More people willing to teach instead of judge. More people who saw others as individuals who deserved kindness, regardless of their rank or status. It was such a simple idea. But apparently, simple ideas could change everything. 5 years passed. Tyler was 33 now, still working the night shift at the Galactic Council Embassy, still mopping the same marble floors. He'd turned down every promotion, every speaking opportunity, every chance to capitalize on his 15 minutes of fame. Some people thought he was crazy. His sister Rachel certainly did. You could be teaching at universities, she'd tell him during their weekly calls. Traveling to other worlds. Making actual money. But Tyler was content. He liked the quiet of the night shift. He liked the simplicity of his work. And honestly, after all the chaos of those few months, he craved normal. So he mopped floors, listened to his podcasts, and went home to his small apartment. Life was good. He was working on the 3rd floor one evening, the same wing where he'd first met Tevin, when he heard footsteps behind him. Quick, excited footsteps. Tyler. He turned around and barely recognized the young person running toward him. Tevin had grown. A lot. The prince was nearly as tall as Tyler now, maybe 12 or 13 in human years, his features more mature but still carrying that same eager energy. Tevin? Tyler said, breaking into a huge grin. What are you doing here? Diplomatic conference with father, Tevin said, slightly out of breath. But I told him I needed to find you first. I have so much to show you. The prince pulled out a tablet and immediately started swiping through images and videos. There were pictures of massive buildings, thousands of young Carathians in classrooms, kitchens, workshops. Videos of kids learning to cook, to organize, to build things with their own hands. This is the Academy of Self-Sufficiency on our homeworld, Tevin explained rapidly. Every citizen between ages 5 and 15 attends. They learn everything, Tyler. Not just the things you taught me, but engineering, cooking, medicine, agriculture. All practical skills that make us capable and independent. Tyler watched the videos in amazement. What had started with shoe tying had grown into something enormous. And look at this, Tevin continued, pulling up more data. Our military efficiency has increased by 40% because soldiers can maintain their own equipment and adapt to situations without waiting for support staff. Our diplomatic missions are more successful because our people can function in any environment. Even our economy has improved because citizens understand the value of work and don't look down on any profession. That's incredible, buddy, Tyler said, genuinely proud. You guys really ran with this. It changed everything, Tevin said, his voice becoming more serious. Not just practically, but socially. Before, there was such distance between classes. Leaders never understood workers because they had never worked. Now every leader has cooked meals, cleaned rooms, built things. They respect labor because they have labored. Our society is more fair, more united. They talked for over an hour. Tyler learned that the path of self-sufficiency had spread to 17 different species now. Some had adapted it to their own cultures, others had adopted the Carathian model directly. The Vaccine Union had finally given in to pressure from their own youth and implemented similar programs. Even Ambassador Kreth, the one who had mocked Tevin at that dinner, had publicly acknowledged the benefits. There was resistance, of course, Tevin admitted. Many of the old noble families fought against it. They said we were destroying tradition, abandoning our heritage. Some still believe that. What do you think? Tyler asked. Tevin was quiet for a moment, thoughtful in that way Tyler remembered from 5 years ago. I think tradition should serve the people, not trap them. I think heritage is valuable, but not when it makes us weak or divided. And I think the best part of our culture now is that we honor all forms of contribution, not just military valor or royal blood. They walked through the embassy together, Tevin telling stories about his education, his friends at the academy, the things he'd learned. He'd become quite a good cook, apparently, specializing in fusion dishes that combined Carathian and human flavors. He'd learned basic mechanical repair and had even fixed his own transport vehicle when it broke down last month. Father was so proud, Tevin said with a laugh. 5 years ago, we would have waited hours for a mechanic. Now I just fixed it myself in 20 minutes. As they walked past a window overlooking the gardens, Tevin suddenly stopped. Oh, I almost forgot. Father wanted me to give you something. He pulled a small box from his bag and handed it to Tyler. Inside was a medal, beautifully crafted, with Carathian symbols etched around the edge. In the center, in both Carathian script and English, were words, "He saw a child, not a crown." Tyler felt his throat tighten. Tevin, I can't. You can and you will, Tevin interrupted firmly. You changed my life, Tyler. You changed my entire civilization. This medal has been given to only 5 people in Carathian history. You are the first human to receive it. Tyler looked at the medal, then at this young prince who had grown so much. You know I just showed you how to tie your shoes, right? That's all I did. No, Tevin said softly. You showed me that learning is not weakness. That independence is strength. That kindness matters more than protocol. You treated me like a person who deserved help and respect, not like a title to bow to. That's everything, Tyler. They heard voices approaching. Emperor Vorith appeared with several attendants, his massive frame somehow seeming less intimidating than Tyler remembered. Maybe because Tyler had seen him learning to tie his boots. The Emperor nodded to Tyler with clear respect. Tyler Webb. It is good to see you again. Your Majesty, Tyler said, still not quite comfortable with formal address. I understand my son has been enthusiastically sharing our progress, Vorith said with what might have been amusement. He speaks of you often. As do many of our young people. You have become something of a legend. I really didn't do anything special, Tyler protested. That is precisely why it was special, Vorith replied. You did not seek glory or recognition. You simply helped someone who needed help. In a galaxy full of complicated politics and ancient grudges, that simple humanity was revolutionary. As they talked, Tyler noticed something. Tevin's bootlace had come undone, trailing slightly across the floor. Before Tyler could point it out, Tevin noticed it too and knelt down to fix it. But he looked up at Tyler with a mischievous expression. Actually, Tyler, could you help me with this? The prince asked. I seem to have forgotten how. Tyler raised an eyebrow. You're lying. You tie perfect knots now. I know, Tevin grinned. But it seemed appropriate. Full circle and all that. Tyler laughed and knelt down, showing Tevin the bunny ear method one more time, even though they both knew the prince could do it in his sleep. When he finished, Tevin immediately reached down and checked Tyler's boots. Aha! Your left boot is loose, Tevin declared triumphantly and proceeded to tie it properly, the same technique Tyler had taught him 5 years ago. They both stood up, grinning at each other, and high-fived. Emperor Vorith watched this exchange with 6 eyes that somehow conveyed warmth despite their alien nature. Some bonds transcend species and status, the Emperor said quietly. Later, after the Carathians had left for their conference, Tyler pinned the medal to his janitor's uniform. It looked ridiculous, this ornate alien decoration on his plain work clothes, but somehow that felt right. He wasn't a diplomat or a teacher or a legend. He was just Tyler, a janitor who had helped a kid who needed it. His supervisor Daniel walked by and stopped, staring at the medal. Is that what I think it is? Probably, Tyler said. You know you're insane for still working here, right? Yeah, I know. Daniel shook his head, smiling. Well, the 3rd floor needs cleaning. Your usual route. On it, Tyler said, grabbing his mop and bucket. As he worked that night, Tyler thought about everything that had happened. 17 species changing their cultures. Millions of young people learning independence. An empire transformed. All because he'd shown a scared kid how to tie his shoes. It was weird how life worked sometimes. The biggest changes didn't come from grand plans or complex strategies. They came from small moments of kindness. From seeing someone who needed help and just helping them. From treating people with dignity regardless of who they were. Tyler finished the 3rd floor and moved on to the 4th, whistling softly. Somewhere out there, across the galaxy, kids were learning to tie their shoes and cook their meals and fix their own problems. They were learning that they didn't need servants to be strong, that independence was something to be proud of. And it all started with bunny ears and a loop. Sometimes, Tyler thought, that's all it takes. Just one person willing to help. Just one moment of simple human kindness. The galaxy could be complicated, but some things were beautifully simple. And maybe that was the most important lesson of all.